Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on NLL Lacrosse Talk is our co-host Gary Groob and our very special guest, Hall of Famer Jamie Batley. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Thanks, Gary, for having me.
You look great. You sound great. It's a beautiful picture in the background there. I feel like we should go in the backyard there and have a beer and talk lacrosse.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just go on the back here.
Put the back, have a beer and talk lacrosse. Well, we can do the lacrosse talk part, so we'll do that part. Jamie,
Okay.
let's start we always ask the same question. I love this question. It's always my favorite. And that's asking, people like you, why you picked up lacrosse. How did this stick end up in your hand and why do you keep it there?
It's a great story. My dad and my uncle played for the Lakers way back in the 50s. And so when I was born in the late 60s, I had two brothers already playing, and my dad was coaching, senior and that kind of stuff. So naturally, around the age of three, I picked up a stick, and that's the story how I got started.
Being in Peterborough is no coincidence that you picked up the game. Speak to the community that you're a part of and how important lacrosse is to that town, Peterborough.
Obviously, very, very important. Been a great history of lacrosse, dating back into the 1800s, but really picking up again in the 1950s, that era. Peterborough won 4-man cups and kind of rejuvenated the lacrosse in Peterborough back in those days. And as I said, my uncle and my father were a part of that. And having lacrosse in the summer, something to do. There wasn't a lot of soccer. There wasn't a lot of baseball. There was softball, obviously. So there was a couple of sports to play, and anybody who was a sports person, either played maybe softball or lacrosse in the summertime.
Yeah, also hockey had a bit of a relationship with the game of lacrosse.
Yeah, obviously that did. And my uncle I was talking about was a trainer for the Petes, and he was a trainer in the AHL with the Rhode Island Reds back in the day. Him and Muckler were good friends. My dad played hockey. My brothers played hockey. I played AAA hockey all the way up, was drafted by the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in juniors. So, yeah, hockey and lacrosse, they obviously transfer over. It's a good off-season sport. Lacrosse is for hockey and vice versa. So, yeah, those two sports are interchanged and are very important in the city of Peterborough.
My sweater wearing buddy has a question.
Okay. Well, first off, I just want to say welcome. And I see you're wearing the Peterborough Lakers alumni. Through the alumni, I was able to get the Andrew Suter jersey. And again, I want to thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about the alumni and what it does, because there's so many great players that are still in the area at all the games. It really is heartwarming going over into Peterborough and seeing everybody, and before the game, after the game, during. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, we a bunch of us, maybe 4 or 5 of us, about 5-6 years ago, had the idea of there had been times in the past where they've tried to start an alumni, but we really decided that we'd put something together and work our butts off to try to get involved and try to get other people involved and try to raise money and those kind of things. So, we started off the first year. We had a golf tournament. We raised some good money. We got people engaged. We asked the Lakers if we could use the skybox in the Memorial Center, and they gave that to us free. It was really helped the momentum, and then COVID hit, so we kind of got behind a couple of years, and now we've kind of really come full circle, and lacrosse is back in Peterborough, and our alumni are back, and we're working hard. One of the fundraising things we did was I contacted GMs in the National Lacrosse League and asked for jerseys for Peterborough players that were playing with the Lakers, and we were able to get them, and they donated those generously to us. And you won one of those jerseys, and we were able to raise $2,000 for our alumni. And we don't with the alumni, we don't ask for a donation from our alumni. So everything with the alumni is free. We don't ask them to pay a penny. You know, we're mindful of the fact that people may or may not be able to pay that. So everything we do is fundraising. Not only are we responsible for getting our alumni together socially, but also we really have concentrated in the last 2 years on grassroots lacrosse. And this summer we put on our first learn to play lacrosse for free. So we offered that down for a 5-week program down at Lacrosse Bowl on Park Street, and it used to be the old Civic Arena back in the day. And it was a great success, and we're going to continue to do that. We feel an obligation as lacrosse alumni to offer the game for free and to get as many kids playing the game that have never been introduced to it before. So that's kind of the the nutshell of the alumni, and it's getting stronger and stronger each year.
One of the special things I find when I'm going into Peterborough is that the entire town, everything stops about lacrosse for the game. Prior to the game, even earlier in the day, signs are up, billboards are up. It's all about that. Now, it's probably the biggest small town I've ever been in, because, a small town, but you've got your own TV station, you've got your own colleges, universities in there. So it is a pretty big place. But with a 60,000 population, to get that kind of camaraderie all over the place is really amazing.
Yeah, and having your own TV station in a small town has been really huge for Peterborough. It's probably something that's been really overlooked regarding our success. Pete Dalladay's father, Gary, who I know you guys know Pete. Mm-hmm. His father, Gary, followed. He played for the Petes, and then he became a broadcaster. And for 40 some years, he broadcasted the Petes and the Lakers, and not maybe when they weren't broadcasting the Lakers. Gary was always putting Laker information on the sports on Checks TV every night, and he did a great job of promoting lacrosse in the city of Peterborough. Often overlooked. Gary doing that. So, and coming into the town, we've had some years and decades where it wasn't like that. So, coming out of the 84 man cup, we really had a drought of 20 years where it really wasn't like that. Our teams were barely surviving. We had some people step forward, and there was many years that the team was going to fold due to finances, and we had no support. And I was fortunate to come on board with the Lakers in 2002 with Bobby Keast. He was the defensive coach, and I was the offensive coach. And we started that year with 6 players in training camp, and really that was the turnaround to get us back on top, to start the flow of lacrosse coming back again, just like it did in the 50s and 60s, coming back again and rejuvenated itself. Was really that 2002 and 2003 year where we really turned a corner again as an organization.
When we talk about sports and popularity, I know we don't want to say it. It's almost politically incorrect to suggest that winning breeds interest, but the reality is winning does breed interest, right? And that's one of the reasons why Peterborough has such popular teams, because their teams do so well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, sometimes you get fluky and you have a good base, and you just have a following. And I mean, you look at the NFL; they've been around forever, and they have lots. Sorry, I got to fly there. They have lots of teams that don't win and they're still successful. I mean, maybe that's I shouldn't be talking about the NFL, but yeah, I mean, we had a 3-year plan back then. In 2004, we won the Man Cup, and I think it was the first time in history that we actually started to not have general admission anymore. We actually, you bought the seat you sat in, and then that pride kind of took over, and the average fan that didn't watch us in the previous 18 years started watching us because we were successful. So you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, no, but it's not just being good on the floor. You have to be good in the office too, right? Like the box office, and of course management and stuff like that. I want to make sure that I emphasize that as well. It's more than one thing. One thing alone won't make a great franchise. It's people too that run the organization.
Oh, no, definitely. I agree 100%. And even in speaking in that 02, 03, 04 kind of little era, there was, I mean, even before that, there was lots of great people raising money. And that's one of the things that the executive of the Lakers have always been able to do in our community is raise money. And whether that's a real estate guy buying a $125 program thing, or, we have major sponsors that sponsor $5,000 to be on the carpet and be major sponsors. So, yeah, I mean, the executive of the Lakers has done a great job. I mean, I think all times, but more specifically coming into the 04 season and onward to where we are today, whoever's been on that executive, and there's been many people behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, that have gone out and solicited dollars from the community, and the community has been phenomenal to donate those dollars.
Gary, allow me this follow-up, and then you take
Sure.
over. We have in football, in the Canadian Football League, Gary and I are season ticket holders for the league, and there's a team, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Much like Peterborough, they almost disappeared into the night, and they had, if it wasn't for good charity and telethons, they wouldn't have survived. But out of that came a lot of success. It sounds like there's a parallel where, maybe when you think you're going to lose something, if there's any value in it, the people who care, the people in town, they know what they've been missing, right?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, some places, you can see that happen. Like, the Quebec Nordiques, when they leave, they didn't realize what they had at the time. I mean, that, the Montreal Expos, same kind of thing. We could talk about a number of those places that's
I'm just
happened.
paralleling the success. That's all.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Once you have success, more people want to get involved. More people want to be with a winner than a loser, obviously.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, though, that it also stands out to me is, where it sticks before the games, and the legends, everybody's accessible. So you can come up and any questions and anything, and everybody's friendly. So you're able to talk. It's one thing to have them there. And a lot of times in a lot of different areas and events, it's an uncomfortable thing to go here. You're welcome with open arms. It's just the area itself, and also having the legends with that same mindset. It makes it very, very easy for outsiders to come in, insiders to keep talking. It's just the entire area breeds success that way, because people can feel part of the winning tradition.
Yeah, I think Peterborough's a blue-collar town, has always been a blue-collar town. And I think you get that in blue-collar towns, right? Everybody's had to work for what they get. Mm-hmm. Nothing comes free. We don't have multimillionaires here, although I'm sure there are. But, I mean, in general, like, our demographic for household income, I'm sure, is a lot lower than a number of other places. And I think that when you have that blue-collar mentality, it's a factory town, right? And you get that blue collar mentality, and it is with open arms, because people, they want to talk to other people. They want to be involved. They want to be open arms. And Sticks is a great place before the game. And the ownership there has done a great job of making that accessible to everybody. And the alumni like to go down there. I know not all of them go down there, but a number of them like to go down there and be accessible and talk lacrosse and talk to people before the game. Yeah, Sticks is a great place, and the players and the people there are accessible.
Peterborough's not like the other Jamie's home, the one in Oakville. That's not blue collar. That's white collar. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything against them. I understand the comparison.
But that's the amazing thing about the love of the sport. I mean, you got Oakville, where you have a town that, at one point, and I think they're back again to being the richest town in Canada, to a working class. That speaks to how lacrosse is. It really spans those levels of people, right? It isn't just, yellow collar, blue collar, white collar, any other green collar. It's everybody can play the game. It's the same thing everywhere. We have U.S. colleges. Some of the greatest colleges in the United States have lacrosse as a main sport, and then people play it in the grassroots. So that, to me, that's what's always been attractive about lacrosse, is it really does go up and down, every part of the country, this one, and even the U.S. now.
Yeah, I can tell you, when I grew up in Peterborough and my siblings grew up and my dad grew up, lacrosse was an accessible sport because it wasn't expensive. You had hand-me-down this and hand-me-down that, and a pair of new shoes, and away you went, right? So, I mean, now obviously the equipment's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's just the affordability of the sport back 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, made it so that everybody could actually play.
All right. So with that being said, I want to jump back a little bit. If I read all your accolades, I'd be saying thank you for coming. By the time I finished getting through the sheet, I want to start really with Junior, and again through the Lakers organization, through Peterborough. Let's talk a bit about the coaching, because you won a couple of Minto Cups. The coaching there, the teams, and how Junior brings everybody up. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, for most of my 5 years in junior, Johnny Martin and Dan Dunn were our coaches, and those were two players that came up in our minor system. Those are two players that played junior and senior in Peterborough and one man cup. So, they were in their 20s when they were coaching us in junior, maybe late 20s, something like that. So they knew what success was, and they bred success into our teams. So I always give accolades to those two guys. I did have a couple of other coaches during that time period, but for most of that 5 years, probably 4 of those 5 years, John Martin and Dan Dunn were our coaches, and a legacy of minor lacrosse and senior lacrosse that they passed on to us.
Right, because when we've had some of the other legends on. We've had John Grant Sr., we've had Jim Wasson, and they talk about Bobby Allen being that guy and how he led them through everything. Another one.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at the age groups, the demographic, like Bobby Allen's, he's doing those things in the 50s and 60s and maybe the 70s, and then the Spin Vitarelli, Mark Vitarelli kind of took a little bit of time in there between the 70s and the 80s, and John Martin and Dan Dunn were in the 80s, so it kind of melded together. But yeah, I mean, those guys, like Bobby Allen didn't coach me in my whole way up, but I'm sure he was coaching other teams and seniors and juniors, because he probably already done that flow as his progression as a coach went up. So yeah, I mean, definitely a legacy is been given on, and I've kind of carried on that as being a coach to coaches now. And then
Right.
if you can even look at Tracy Kolaski, who I coached, now he's coaching, right? So that legacy is living on in Peterborough. Yes.
Right. Now, you won in 86 and 87 Minto Cups. Was there a favorite?
You know what? My whole 5 years were a favorite. We looked at some stats the other day, because the 74 book come out where the team in Peterborough had won 2 years without losing. And teams that I played on, specifically in 86, 87, and 88, were like 88-1 in Ontario. Won 2 minute cups and lost 1 game in Ontario in that 3-game stretch. Looking back in my 5-year career, I was 122-10 in a 5-year career. So it was totally amazing, the group of players I had with. We grew up together, we played together, our brothers played together. The 80s were a phenomenal year for junior lacrosse in Peterborough. We won 6 minnow cups in 10 years, and that's hard to do. So my junior years were phenomenal. My brothers played with the James gang the few years before. I carried it on, and then they won a minnow cup in '89. After I was done junior, so it was a phenomenal era in 1980s.
And you wind up in Maryland playing field.
Yeah.
Was that a lot of adaptation at that time, because you're a box player?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting how that happened. I tried out for Team Canada in 1990 in Colorado. One of our coaches, Haswell Franklin, he's a well-known coach out of. He went to Hopkins out of Baltimore, and he was doing some scouting and was wondering if I was interested in a scholarship down there. And I had just finished my real estate license in Peterborough, so I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe this is a different opportunity to get a university education. So, after some communication with the university, and back then it was through letters, right? So, it was no emails or none of that stuff. We just sent letters back and forth, which was kind of interesting. And he vouched for me down there, and I ended up getting a full scholarship for 4.5 years. So for me, it was a good decision. Now, I kind of look back, if I was a real estate agent, I might be a millionaire, but I might be broke too. So, maybe getting a university education was the kind of middle ground. So yeah, that's how I ended up down in Maryland, and I enjoyed UMBC. It was an interesting era. I took my wooden stick down there, and the guys couldn't believe that I used a wooden stick, because they didn't. And after a year, they kind of warmed up to me, and And we had a couple successful years down there. We we almost got into the tournament when it was a 12-team tournament back then, and you had a lot of powerhouses, so it was really hard as a top 20 team to get in. So it was a good time in my life, and really glad I went down there.
You obviously turned heads because in 1993 you were an All-American, right?
Yeah, we had some good teams, and we sort of built up. 93, I was an All-American, and we really should have gone further than we did that year. I don't remember the details. I just remember we should have gone further, and then we had a coaching change in 94, and about halfway through, we weren't looking good for the playoffs. So the seniors kind of got a lot less time on the floor and or on the field, and that was kind of the end. I took seven classes in my last semester playing lacrosse, and I graduated. So I wasn't going back. So it wasn't like these guys now where you can get a graduate degree in a year or two and stay on, and that wasn't happening for me. I was coming back to Canada. So yeah, 93 was a good year.
Go ahead, Frank.
Oh no, well, no, it's okay. Go ahead. I was going to ask something.
I was going to talk about the field team now in Canada. With you played in the 90 silver medalist, and 94 was a bronze medalist. Obviously, your years in Maryland helped with that. Now we talked with Grant Senior, obviously, and talked about the 70s teams and the surprise as they adapted to the game. By this point, obviously, 1990, we had a pretty good idea of the field game. What were the teams like?
Yeah, unfortunately, in those 2 years, 90 and 94, U.S. was just unbelievable. We had good players. We had the two Gates, and we had, Kevin Alexander, and, we had some good midfielders. I thought I was a good midfielder at the time. And, we had the Maricheks, both Maricheks, Tommy and Billy, and, a good core. But, these guys play it day in and day out field lacrosse, right? Like they have everything down to science. And at that point, we were still playing box, trying to play field, trying to play a little bit of both, and we couldn't do it against the Americans. They were phenomenal. Absolutely. You look back at the names of those teams, like Petramala was, they would, whoever had the ball, they'd put Petramala on and that shut everybody else off. And, you couldn't run an offense, right? It's not like you say, well, why didn't you run this offense or that offense? Well, you just couldn't run offense. All you could do with the ball was run because you were going to lose it because Petramala was going to take it away from you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, it was difficult. And, offensively, they would hold on to the ball for 9 minutes. They would just put the game right out of our hands. We really didn't. And we'd go down and lose the ball or throw it away and forget to go behind the net because we weren't used to it and lose the ball for another 9 minutes. But those were really good teams. Our team was good. I thought we were good, but those teams, the American teams back in 90 and 94 were phenomenal.
Right. Well, silver and bronze is still no slouch. Believe me, those are great teams.
Well, when the expectation is gold, yes, they are good. But when your expectation is gold, and maybe that's the problem with being a Canadian, Peterborough Canadian, is my expectation is always gold. So,
right.
A little bit of letdown.
See, I want to talk about a thing there because Jim Wasson brought this up, the difference between Canadian and American players. And I think I talked with somebody up in the alumni box about it. The difference is that Americans go for scholarships. Canadians go for the cup. We've always been born and bred to raise the cup. Does that mindset really work when we're doing these tournaments? Like,
yeah, I never really thought about it that way. My only personal experiences, I went down there for both. I went down there to win. That was my mentality, but I also went down for an education because I knew it was important. But, when you get to these tournaments, I think everybody wants to win the cup. I'm not sure if the Americans were just, not thinking about winning. I think they think about winning. Right. I just think we've caught up to them. Really in the field game, like, they can't trick us with anything in the field game anymore, right? The thing we have is we're just so successful holding on to the ball, and our skills in tight are just so much better than theirs because we're always in tight in the box, right? We're always within a dotted line of the net or, a quick shot of the net. So, we just learned to protect the ball better, I believe. And I think, they're slowly going to pick that up because they have box lacrosse down there now. So kids are going to get better. And I think it's going to even out. But I really think the difference is our stick skills with the ball.
Right. Right.
Well,
Now,
that's all box lacrosse.
Thanks to
I
box.
before I go to the MSL stuff, NLL wise, you get in with Syracuse. So that was a big step forward, going from college, and all of a sudden you're now in the NLL.
Yeah. It was an interesting year. It was an expansion team. Kevin Alexander was the coach. There was a few guys from Victoria, Del Halliday and Chris Pratt, guys I keep contact with. And it was, some of them lived down there. I drove in on the weekends. We didn't have the greatest team. Paul Gate played in our team, because he was living in Syracuse at the time. But we're still up against the Philadelphias and the teams and the Buffaloes that were, well established. So yeah, that was a decent start, and for me. And then I went to Buffalo after that, and I'm not saying I had a great NLL career. I pulled my weight on the third line, and I had my career at home that I was probably more thinking about. But and we had some good teams in Buffalo that I wasn't on the first line or the power play with, which they had great players then. John Tavares and Troy Cordingley and Dewey Jacobs and Darius Kilgore and Richie Kilgore and all those guys who, it'd be pretty tough to crack the power play with those guys anyway. So, my career there, a couple of years in Buffalo, and then just a few games in Pittsburgh. Someone got injured, and they needed someone right away, and I played a few games there. So my career was short there. I think there was only 8 games a year anyway. So, it wasn't huge seasons like it is now. It didn't cover like 8 months or 7 months like it does now. It was really, quick and short, but I enjoyed the time.
Sure. But all during that, you're playing with the MSL, and you're with Six Nations for a number of years. And then,
So I came.
You won a couple of Man Cups with Six Nations.
Yeah, and some of those guys I just mentioned were on that Six Nations team. So when I came back, it was '94 from school, and I was a free agent. Peterborough didn't protect me, so I said to them, I want to play for Peterborough, but I got this problem. I play for Team Canada, and I need $2,500 to go to England. I got to raise it, and I don't have it. Right, I'm coming out of school, so yeah. Teddy Higgins there, he gave me $2,500 to play that year, and I turned around and gave that check to Team Canada, and so I got to go to England, and then after that, the deal was if I'd be a free agent if I wanted to be, and he agreed to that. So, when I came back to Peterborough, they were kind of in that funk. They were after the '84 Man Cup, and they really couldn't get stuff going, and guys weren't taking it as seriously as I wanted to take it. And nothing against them, because I love all those guys, but I decided to go to Six Nations because they won the year before, obviously, but they wanted me, and I wanted to be successful. So, walking through the door, and JT's there, and Troy Cordingley, and all those guys, the Kilgore brothers, and we had a good defense, Shanahan, and Bomberry, and Paulie Gate played for us too, and so that time was good. And Les Wakeling was our coach. I think he's one of the best coaches I've ever had out of Brampton, and after a few games, I couldn't get on the power play. I was on power play 2 with Paul Gate, and I couldn't get on the power play because we had our power play 1 scored all the time. So I said, hey, I got to get on the floor. So you got to put me on short man 1, so I can at least get on the floor, So, and he did that, and I worked really well with Steve Fennell out of St. Catharines. He was my partner at the top of the short man, and I took the opportunity to play the short man so I could score goals. To get breakaways, right, and 2-on-1s, and he had the same mindset I did. So, our objective was to stop the goal too. But when the other team shot the ball, we were gone. Right. There was no 2 ways about that. So, a lot of my success, at least scoring wise, was from the short man.
Right. So we transition into coaching. How did you get into being the coach and GM in Peterborough? Huge success overall, as a coach and general manager from 2002 to 2013, 5 Man Cups, 6 provincial titles, 10 straight major series lacrosse finals. That's impressive. Yeah. How did you get started in it, though?
Well, it's a really interesting story. I started coaching junior because Johnny Martin was back coaching junior, and So I said to him, I said, look, I'm getting older in my career. I did play for 3 years in Akwesasne after that, and a couple of years senior B. But, I said to him, I said, look, I want to get into coaching eventually. I'm in my 30s or early 30s, whatever it was. I said, I want to get into coaching. He said, okay, well, come on aboard, and you can do the offensive door and learn the ropes. So I did that for a couple of years. I think 2000, 2001, something like that. And then at training camp one day, unbeknownst to me, Paul Evans came on the floor and was starting to run the offense. So, geez, I kind of looked around and I thought, well, nobody told me I was fired. So Paul Evans is here. He's a little more experienced than I am. And, his son's playing. So, I made a phone call that night to Bobby Keast. I said, are you guys got any coaches there at senior? He goes, well, I don't know. He said, let me ask Ted. So, he phoned me back and he said, yeah, Ted just wants to meet you. So, because I didn't really have met Ted, really
Right.
I did, but we talked for about 5 minutes at a coffee shop, and he said, yeah, okay, you can be the, 2002, you're the offensive coach, and Bobby's the defensive coach. And as I said earlier, we started out with 6 guys in training camp, and I came in like a lightning bolt. I wanted to win. I was a driven coach from the very beginning. Still learning. You still learn as a coach every game. Learn to listen to people. Learn not to yell at referees, etc. But we changed the mentality right off the bat. It wasn't, yes, you can show up for practices or you can't. You're showing up or you're not playing. We'll find somebody. And even in, I think, 02, I even played a few games. No, it was even in 04. I played a few games because we just couldn't get guys or for whatever reason. So that's how I got into with the Lakers. And I wasn't the GM until 04. I said to Ted, I said, hey, look, you know what? I know all these players. I played with them. I watch every game. I go to games. I know the players. Let me be the GM. And then 2004, I became the GM, and we just started rolling.
Now, during that time, you made your debut as an NLL coach. How did that come about? You went to Colorado. You became the coach there in 03. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I applied for that job. Well, actually, Darius Kilgore asked me to be the coach in Buffalo, assistant coach, and I said, well, I got this assistant coach. I went for the head coaching job in Colorado, but Rod Jensen got that. Now, by the way, he's coaching Langley right now and potentially coming west or coming east with the Western team.
It's looking really good, yeah.
Yeah, it's looking good, and so I was, I'd been offered that assistant coaching job, and Darius asked me, he said, I'd like you to be my assistant coach, because we were good buddies when we played in Buffalo and Six Nations together. I said, you know what? I said, in Buffalo, there's no chance I'm ever going to be a head coach. I said, you're the head coach. Your brother's an assistant coach. I'm never going to go up. I'm always going to be assistant coach. I got to take this Colorado job. And I didn't know Rod Jensen. And, I think we went 4-5 or something like that. And Steve Govett fired him. And, I became the head coach. Like, it was,
right.
We had a decent team. It was our first year in Colorado. We had a lot of American guys. But that's just the kind of way that went. And then I ended up, coaching there for a couple of years.
Right. And from there, you wind up going to Chicago. We have a mutual friend where you have a story about with Ray Kincaid and his mom and the traveling. So
yeah,
let's talk about Chicago, because that's always my favorite trip back then, because it was always a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, Chicago was really a good start there. We had a really good organization. They were spending a lot of money, and they were letting me be the GM and the coach. I got applied for the job, had a couple interviews, ended up getting it, and they let me do whatever I want as a GM, do whatever I want as a coach. They said, hey, you hire who you want. We'll stay out of your way, right? And they did. And we went 6-10 and 6-10 in 2 years, and that was during the year when we came in. New York came in too, so it was a double entry. So you think you're going to get a good player off every team like they do now. Well, no, you might get the second best player down the line, after 14 or whatever it is. So we put together with mostly guys from Ontario and had a couple good years. And I just made a trade for Cosmo, and we were looking good for our third year. Cosmo was one of the best goalies at the time, and I thought we're really going to make some moves now. And then they folded. So we already had 3 games paid for, 3 flights paid for, and you get a phone call 2 days before Christmas. Yeah, we're folding. So and that was a tough one to take, but I did enjoy the time down there and made a lot of friends. And and we did have some. Even 6-10 doesn't sound successful, but for a new franchise, that was really we missed the playoff the one year in the tiebreaker with Toronto. So we were building some success there.
And that building was exciting. That was a lot of fun in that place.
Sorry?
The building that you guys played in Chicago.
Yeah, it was a brand new building out in a place called Hoffman Estates, where the average income was $250 household. The average income was $250 American a year. It was a rich area, brand new building. It was a nice atmosphere. I'm not sure how many people we got. I know we didn't fill it, but we almost filled it most nights, and it was fun. It was a little out of the way. It wasn't really in Chicago. You're a 45-minute drive downtown, which nobody ever went down there. So, it would have been nice to be in downtown Chicago and play at that time, but no, that wasn't the case.
Right. And you leave Chicago and you wind up in Toronto. And just
interesting.
Just at the cusp of something good happening. That was in the couple of years where things were kind of strange here in Toronto.
Yeah. I was driving my daughter to hockey. She played boys hockey here in Peterborough, and I get a phone call from Mike Clofer. He says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about the Toronto job." And Clarkey was, him and Jimmy Veltman were in there at the time, I think, and I think they'd started off 1-2 or something like it. It was really early in the season. I was kind of surprised. So, I said, "Hey, you got some pretty good guys there that are good coaches. It can't be the coaching. Like, they're good coaches." And he said, "Well, we want to make a move." And I said, "Well, I'll talk to you." And I interviewed with the owners the next day, Brad Waters and his dad. And then they hired me there. And so I think we were okay. I don't think we had the greatest team that year. I know we worked hard, but we didn't have a lot of wins. I don't think we didn't make the playoffs. But, it was interesting because then, they were selling the team, and I didn't know that. And so I thought I had a chance there. And then they hired Derek Keenan. So they didn't hire me back. And I interviewed for Edmonton. So I did some interviewing for Edmonton, and I thought I was going to get the Edmonton job. And then just as that happened, the new owner, Jamie, got rid of Derek Keenan and hired Cordingley and Sanderson. And now Derek Keenan was out of his job, and then he got the job in Edmonton, and I didn't get it. And so I was left high and dry. So it was kind of a crazy 2 months when all that stuff was going on. It went from Toronto to maybe in Edmonton to nothing. So it was, and Derek went from, I think, Portland to maybe Toronto to Edmonton kind of thing. So
no time to pack your suitcase, no time to unpack it.
No. I remember I interviewed in Edmonton. I flew in and flew out the same day. It was a long day.
Boy, the old joke about being in town for a cup of coffee actually really happened.
Yeah, it was a dinner. It was a lunch, soup and a sandwich, and I was back on a plane.
Okay, sorry, it's funny now, but I'm sure it wasn't funny then.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us a little bit about that and the responsibility of being a coach. And that sounds like the bad news. That's a funny story. What are some of the great moments that you've pulled out of being a coach that you take to life?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough question. I think, what? One of the most important things, I think, is just relationships, building relationships. And that's one of the tough things to do in lacrosse, because everybody's your rival except for the people around you, kind of thing. And then next thing you might be coaching with that guy, and that's come to light in the last 15 years, where guys are now playing two seasons and they're getting become friends and stuff. Back then, it was tough. There wasn't a lot of that camaraderie, but over the years that camaraderie built, and I learned to respect it, and I learned to cherish it. And even a lot of the rivals I have now, I make a point to go up and talk to them. And even when Terry Sanderson was alive, he was a big rival of mine, coaching wise. And even afterwards, I go up and talk to him and say hi and that kind of. Don't get me wrong, we weren't going to go out for dinner, Terry and I, but we at least said hi and those kind of things.
Coffee, beer.
Well, it was just a hi. Terry and I were kind of the same. We were both. We were both pretty bullheaded, you know what I mean? And we
use the word intense.
Yeah, he taught me a good lesson once, though. In 2003, we were playing in Peterborough at the Kinsman then, and I was just a new coach. So he gave me the lineup sheet about 3 minutes before the drop of the ball, and I went ballistic and had to fill out a game sheet. And that rivalry of filling out game sheets went on for about 3 years after that. We'd hide the game sheet. The ref would come and say, "Where's the game sheet?" We don't have the game sheet, and that kind of went on for crazy. I had a lot of respect for him. He taught me a couple of lessons on being a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the lesson there is that, I don't know, what's the lesson that
Well, we were talking about being, friends, and I just used Terry as an example because I really think he and I were both kind of bullheaded. That's
yeah,
why
I was being facetious.
Yeah, but I talked to a lot of guys who I was rivals with throughout the years. Now it's good to see him. Eric Peroni's now, he's in town now. His kid was playing, and Eric Peroni and I fought in the Kinsman Arena when we were in junior, and probably didn't talk to each other for 25 years. But I talked to him this summer in the parking lot at the Memorial Center. So, those kind of things. Like, in the old days, you would have said, "I'm never talking to that guy again." But now it's like, hey, how are you doing? Kind of thing, right? So lacrosse does that. And it's a good lesson to, hey, just be open-minded.
Can you imagine, Gary, the first time they talk in 25 years is out in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Where are you putting the ropes? Where are you putting the board?
It was cordial. We're both too old to fight anymore.
I was being facetious about the lessons learned. The lesson, I think, is, and we've learned it with lacrosse, and there's a lot of ways to get to it. You talked about relationships, and you talk about, respecting people. The respect that the lacrosse family has within it. You're right. Back in your day when you were playing, there wasn't as much of that going on, where teammate enemy. But the fact still remains that it's a small group of people, a smaller by other standards of sports. I mean, right? That because of that, you get to really know people, whether you know them personally, like you said, walk by to say hi, their personality. And your personality with the ex rock coach is something that doesn't surprise me. That's the intensity and love that you have for the sport. When you walk away from it and years later and you think about that other guy, and you might not have thought at the time that he was exactly like you, but as you step back and get further away from the time, it's kind of makes you feel warm inside, doesn't it? Because you realize, what, that guy's a guy I should have been a friend with. I know I'm probably saying too much, but know what
Terry and I should have been great friends, just
Right.
off the floor. Like if I lived in Brampton or he lived in Peterborough, we would have been great friends. We had the same mentality: win at all costs, no matter what. Win, right? And that was Terry. Everybody knows that was Terry. He would do anything to win, and that was Jamie Batley when he was coaching too. Anything to win, no matter what it was, you do it to win. And yeah, as I say, I never thought of him as ever, being someone I could talk to or anything like that. But we ended up doing that after we weren't rivals anymore, right? But because you didn't talk to your rival back then, right? You might have said some words, but they were choice words.
You both had the same attitude towards your players. That's another similarity. You both had the same attitude with your players.
Well, he was a very demanding coach on his players, and I was a very demanding coach on my players. And there were consequences with the Lakers in the numbers that you Gary, had mentioned earlier. There were consequences. Like, we have the best players in the world, like John Grant and Scotty Evans at the time, winning championships, and I'll go on and on. I could go on and on. But those guys had a responsibility, and if they didn't live up to the responsibility, there were consequences. We used to call it going to the middle of the bench, because that's where I stood. So if someone didn't live up to their, what they were supposed to do, the coach was told, tell them to come to the middle of the bench. And they came to the middle of the bench, and they sat right by my feet. And we don't have to tell people in senior what they did wrong. They know. They need a 10-second break. They need a 15-second break. They know that there's consequences. You got to treat everybody the same. That's what I did. I treated everybody the same, whether the best player or the worst player. So if John Grant screwed up, I had to do the same thing as if the seventh guy on offense screwed up, right? And they all knew that, and they all respected it, and they all expected it as well, especially Scotty Evans, because when things didn't go his way, he screwed up a little bit, and he always liked to come and sit at my feet for a little while, but he respected it, right? Like, they all respected that's the way it has to be in order to win.
Can I make an attempt at clarifying what you just said? When you say you treat them exactly the same, to be specific for the viewers there, what I want people to understand is, and I'm only asking you, I'm not telling you, but you can deny what I'm saying completely if you wish. the expectation of how a player should play, because a coach knows how good a player is. A coach knows how much that player can play defense, how much they can play offense, and how much heart they have to give and how much physicality they can bring to the game. It's when they don't reach the highest level, right? It's not so much that you expect the same from each player, but you expect the same give that every player should give, right?
Right. Well said, but I'll add to it in a systematic way as well. If you're
Exactly.
not going to play within the system that we've designed and everybody's bought into, when you're outside the system, then there's consequences, right? And you got to say, hey, you got to come back into the system because the system's going to make us win, right? So yes, I agree with what you said. Everybody, you have an expectation of every player, and sometimes they play 80% of that expectation, or sometimes they play 20%. And the expectation is not the same for every player. It's not the same level, obviously.
Yes, that's what makes a good coach, though. That's the point I'm trying to make, Jim. Because
Yeah.
you don't know the quality of your player. You may be asking a player to do too much and not expect enough from another player, and I think that's what makes the best coaches in any sport.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you have to analyze that on a regular basis. I'll be more specific. You can't have 5 guys on offense in lacrosse that all like to shoot the ball from the outside, because they're not going to get a shot from outside. Then one guy's going to flog the ball all night. So you have to analyze that on a regular basis, even on a period by period basis. Someone gets hurt, now someone has to change jobs. You got to go to someone and say, hey, you can't shoot from outside. You've got to set somebody else up. You got to have to start doing other things, right? Those kind of things. So yes, systematics, individualistic, all that stuff has a higher expectation. You got to play within yourself. You got to play within the system, and there's consequences. When I coached, there was consequences if you didn't.
Right. Now you got back into coaching after a little hiatus. In two forms. In 2016, you were coaching Kanawaki Mohawks in Senior B, to President's Cup winning stuff, as well as going to Vancouver and with the Stealth, and from 16 to 18, you were coaching there.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the Vancouver spot first. There, Doug Locker. We maintained a friendship from way back when I coached Chicago, because he was down in San Jose then, and we had a little bit of a friendship, and we maintained that friendship. And he didn't like the way that the direction of the team was going. He thought the expectation should have been higher, and he called me and said, hey, we're going to be in Toronto in a couple weeks. I wouldn't mind just sitting down talking to you. So I met him before their game. I think they played in a Sunday afternoon, and I met him before the game and had a conversation. And he went back to the owner, Denise Watkins, there, and they interviewed me and liked what they liked my success in the past. So and I think they knew I was going to bring in, just like we were talking about, an expectation and consequences, and kind of tone the line back to where it was. And maybe they thought that was a good idea, because maybe they thought the line had been stretched too far. So
sure.
And we had a decent success. We took the team to the playoffs. We had a home playoff game, which was not expected. The next year was 17, so 16 when I took over. They wanted to get in the playoffs, but we were so far off. And that's the first time since I think they won the championship that team's been in the playoffs. That franchise. And they're still struggling. They're getting a little bit better here year by year, but they're still struggling out there. But yeah, that was a good 2-3 years, a lot of travel. Cordingley's going out there now to do that. Probably will love it for year 1, year 2. It starts to get on you. Year 3, you're really kind of, hey, I got to go to work Monday, and I'm going to be exhausted again, right? So
that was traveling. Yeah,
it was a lot of travel. It's 5 hours out there. You leaving on a Friday morning and getting home late Sunday. It was very, very difficult. But yeah, and then talk about Ganawagi. I played down there for a couple of years, and so they asked me to come down and coach and kind of turn a team around there too. So, when I first started there, they were taking lots of stupid penalties, and guys were undisciplined and on and off the floor and that. And I just said, hey guys, I'm driving 4 hours. I'm coming to win. So I'm not driving 4 hours to sit all night in the penalty box because you want to yell at the referee. And it took a little while to instill that. And even in my second year, we had a whole game without a penalty, which in my eyes, with that team, was amazing. With any team, not to have a penalty, but in Senior B, not to have a penalty for a whole game was a huge accomplishment. And we went out to the played the minors there, and they were in their really good senior B run. We came second to them. And then a couple years later, I'm trying to think, it was a year later, a couple of years. It was probably just a year later. Then we hosted and end up third. Now, we lost our Brian Rice. I think it was Brian Rice. He was our leading scorer that year, and we lost him in game 2 to Nova Scotia, which that's why I don't like that. Kind of 8-team round robin kind of thing. It's kind of crazy. You get a team that just wants to be there and a team wants to win. The guy gets hurt. It was by a fluke. Nobody did it on purpose. But if we didn't have to play that game, he wouldn't have got hurt. Angus was our goalie. Angus Goodleaf, really good goalie from Ganawagi, and he got injured. I think everybody knows what happened to him. Yeah. He's healthy now, which is really good. I'm glad for him.
Yeah, that was scary when that happened.
Yeah, so we lost 2 of our best players and end up winning the bronze. So I mean, for us, that ended up being a successful year winning the bronze, and we talked about that earlier. You always want to go for gold, but bronze was a success for our year under those circumstances.
Now, let's just talk. We only have about 5 minutes left. Your inductions. You're inducted into the Peterborough District Sports Hall of Fame 2016, Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame 2017, and the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame in 2020. We had Michelle Boyer on, and one of the things that stood out when we were talking to her about inductions was she was actually more jazzed about being inducted into her hometown Hall of Fame than any of the other ones, because she grew up in that area and now she's in the Hall of Fame of it. Do you have the same thinking when it comes to going into the Peterborough District Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's really a valid point. The Peterborough District Hall of Fame, if nobody's ever been there, you have to go. It's one of the best Hall of Fames there is that I've been in. Not like the NHL Hall of Fames and those, like for small towns. The people there are all volunteers. They do an unbelievable job. It's phenomenal in there. They have every sport. They have sections for every. They do a great job. It's free to get in, and it's my hometown, right? It's my home area, and the respect that I get from being in there is totally amazing around town. I am grateful for being in there. I followed my uncle in there. We talked about earlier, Rock Batley. I kind of followed him to all the Hall of Fames. He's in all of them as well. It's just a phenomenal thing to be in your local Hall of Fame. It's amazing. The Ontario one, it doesn't seem to be as special to me. Not that I'm not grateful, but the Canadian one is obviously special. Maybe the Ontario one's just too far away. It's in St. Catharines or out that way, and I don't get to. I've only been there once, but yeah, they're all special in their own way. But definitely being in the Peterborough one is really huge to me.
Now, just before we end, presently you're with the Halifax Thunderbirds as an alternate governor and player analyst. What does that entail?
Everything the owner wants me to do. Yeah, I really started off with as being a player analyst, and that kind of lasted for about 6 weeks till we kind of got into the what does Kurt really need. Kurt's an amazing owner. Kurt Stiers, he's an amazing person, and I have a lot of respect for him and his family and his organization. But I think Kurt understands his needs, and he needed me in different areas. And I was able to transition to an alternate governor for him and be able to, really break down some details from the league, within the league, so that he can analyze and make better decisions. And I think that's kind of where my job is. It's really not a title, but, whether it's league finances or league competition committee, those kind of things. I'm really deeply involved in that at that level, and I can really break it down for him so he can understand and make better decisions. And at the end of the day, with the number of businesses and how busy he is, that's what he needs. He needs it broken down so he can say, okay, I understand it now. I can make a better decision. And I think for a few years, maybe he wasn't able to do that. I'm not sure, but he needed me to do that. And that's kind of where I've transitioned into now with him.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. I really want to thank you for taking this time with us. And I want to wish you guys the best of luck tomorrow night in Six Nations. You guys are up 3-1, looking to four-peat for the Man Cup, which is unheard of. All the best. Thank you so much.
No,
Jim.
I really appreciate it, and I thank you guys for what you do. You guys do a great job of spreading the word of lacrosse, and I appreciate that. Thank you for having me today.
It's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
All right, he's Jamie Batley. For Gary Groob, our co-host, I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Pick up a stick, why don't you?